Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to have Jo Welsh here, who is delivering a presentation about careers guidance from Complete Careers. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough, so do excuse me. I'll mute myself in a minute and let Jo take over so I don't cough on everyone. So tonight is really exciting because this is a very natural step, I think, for teachers to pivot from the role that you're doing at the moment, where you're helping young people, to move into a career guidance role where you're helping them again, but with their next steps. And I think now it's more important than ever because there's so many choices for young people out there. So it's great to have Jo on board. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'd love if you could tell our audience a bit more about your background and how you got into your role, because I know you've worked in the education sector for 20 years, which is no mean feat. So I'd love to know a bit more about your backstory, please.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me along tonight. That's great. And it's lovely to meet you all. A little bit about me. I'm now the CPD manager at Complete Careers. Well, actually, I have quite a lot of hats. So I have two jobs. So I work for Complete Careers, which is a small private sector careers organisation offering lots of professional services, including career guidance. I'm the CPD manager there. So I manage all of the accredited and non-accredited training programs that we offer. So we offer things like the Level 3 award in information, advice or guidance. But one of our biggest programs is the Level 6 apprenticeship. It's the Career Development Professional apprenticeship. So I manage that, I teach on it, so I deliver some of the units, some of the training days, and kind of just oversee that really from a sort of strategic point of view. I'm also a career guidance practitioner, so my other job is I'm freelance guidance practitioner. So I've worked in schools across the East Midlands mainly, but now I just work in one school in Leicestershire. So I do guidance on across the year for them, mainly working with year 10s and year 11 students. What else do I do? Yeah, I'm also got another hat. I'm also a quality and careers standard assessor. So the quality and careers standard is basically a quality award that schools and colleges can go for to kind of show the range and depth and breadth of their careers provision in their organisation. So I'm an assessor for that award. And my background actually is I've worked in private sector, public sector, higher education. So I've moved around a bit, but I have to say, I think one of my main passions really is it's kind of social mobility really, and the role that careers education and careers guidance can play within social mobility. So that is kind of a bit of a passion for me. I spent quite a few years working for the Aim Higher programme, which some of you may or may not have heard of. So that is kind of me in a nutshell. And I have got some slides to share with you tonight, but we're having a bit of an issue opening them actually. So I'm going to try and resend them again to Kate and see if I can send those. So apologies for that. Let me just try and resend those.
No problem at all, Jo. I think from being a secondary school teacher and delivering year 11 careers days or talking to students about their options in sixth form, obviously a lot's changed within the education system. But what was really interesting was the packages that we were perhaps given as teachers to present to other people. It wasn't until I started working with a career coach that I realised just how little value some of those packages had, and how they didn't really suit the individuals. It was almost like a box ticking exercise. So it's great to hear how things have moved on within the education system, and it's great for teachers to be able to have the confidence to deliver careers in a kind of unique way, but also changing career into this as well is just so important in this time. within young people's lives. Jo, what yeah, tell me a bit more about how you help young people, and I'll just see if I can get the presentation sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of my work, I've worked with mainly year 10, 11, and then post 16 students. So, I mean, I guess just to give you a little bit more of a backstory on me, I worked in the education sector for a long time doing various different things. I worked for Nottingham Trent University in the schools and colleges outreach team. I worked on the AIM Higher programme, as I've already said. So that's working with students, you know, mainly kind of pupil premium students, trying to widen participation into higher education within underrepresented groups. But I think the reason why I retrained about 8 years ago as a career guidance practitioner. And my main motivation behind that really was to work with young people on a one-to-one basis. So I knew that I wanted to carry on working with young people, but I wanted to work on a one-to-one basis so I felt I could have a real impact on their lives. And I haven't been disappointed on that front at all, because I think, as a career guidance practitioner, we are so well placed to have that one-to-one conversation with young people. And, you know, a young person might have, I think, something like 180 maths lessons across year 10 and 11. And they get, in comparison to that, they get one career guidance interview. And obviously there's, there's a huge imbalance between curriculum input and careers education input. But, we need to strike a balance there. And sometimes I feel that careers education is so low down on the agenda, the impact is kind of minimal. But actually, when you see young people, it can be such a rewarding thing to have a meaningful conversation with a young person and kind of give them that platform to really reflect and think about what they want, how they see their kind of careers playing out, and what are their goals, what are their career goals, and discussing those with them, and helping them kind of find their way through like a bit of a minefield, because it is a bit of a minefield out there. The labour market is changing so rapidly now. Different sort of skill sets are needed, particularly with technology playing such an important kind of role within the labour market. That's not the right presentation, I'm afraid. But I can try and use this presentation, or we can just like forget the presentation if you like. It's totally up to you, Kate. I really don't mind.
On mute. Yeah, so basically this is the one Jenny delivered, didn't she, last time? So I think this has come through on the email for some reason. And then I tried to open it with Microsoft and it wouldn't let me. So I then opened it with Google Slides. So who knows what's happening? What would you prefer to do, Jo? Are you happy to go without the presentation? I can always email the presentation to the audience afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got something dodgy going on with my PowerPoint, because my PowerPoint tried to open this presentation, and this is not the presentation that I was going to show tonight. So I don't know what's going on, some sort of massive technical glitches, I'm afraid. I could use this as a basis and, or just kind of talk through what I was going to say without any slides, if people can bear to just sort of listen to my voice without actually seeing anything visual.
I'm sure they can. You have a lovely face, so we can see you from there.
Okay, well, let's just try that then. Let's just do that. And I think, just talking about sort of like those skills that are required, I think, people who have been teachers or who are teachers, a lot of those sort of skills that you need to be successful as a guidance practitioner, that kind of empathy, understanding, sensitivity, listening, diversity, inclusion, all these sorts of things, that this sort of knowledge and skill set that you need is so transferable to the guidance world. because really career guidance, it's as I said, it's kind of it's giving students that platform to really reflect. But it's helping them to try and challenge themselves as well, challenge them to sort of reach their full potential, give them the autonomy. It's giving them that autonomy to be able to make well-informed decisions with obviously your help as a guidance practitioner. Just to give you an example, sort of, I had a young student come to me the other day that I saw, and she said to me, I want to be a social worker. And as the conversation went on, we realized that she had a very, very basic understanding of what a social worker did. She actually didn't really understand what a social worker was. So it's all about getting the young person to tell their story. What's the motivation behind wanting to be a social worker? Where does that come from? And finding out, kind of really, really unpicking that and finding out, okay, so how much do they already know? What is their knowledge level? Because often with young people, they do kind of tend to make decisions based on assumptions as well. And they tend to assume that they know all about a specific job role because perhaps they've seen it on TV. I get lots of students wanting to be forensic scientists because for a long time, there was a lot of dramas on the TV about being a forensic scientist, and it made it look terribly dramatic and terribly glamorous. But then when you say, you have talked to the young person, they actually realize that a lot of your hours are spent doing lab work. It's basically a laboratory-based role where you're analysing at little bits of kind of evidence that you've collected from the scene. So it's all about helping them to kind of unpick and helping them to understand there's a lot of information out there. And yes, part of our job is around giving information, and it absolutely is. But I think sometimes there's a bit of a misconception there that information giving is all we do as guidance practitioners. Telling people about jobs, that tends to be the sort of a common misconception, really. And that is just a tiny part of what we do, really, because yes, there's information involved. And obviously there's as a practitioner, you will be guiding young people towards or signposting them to really good resources that they can use to do their research. But then that is different to advice where what you're doing is going through the options with them. So, they might say, right, I would like information about my post-16 options. So, absolutely, we can point them, we can signpost them towards a good website that's going to tell them all about their post-16 options. The advice bit comes in when they say, okay, well, I don't really understand what T-levels are, or I don't understand how an apprenticeship works. So you're talking them through the options and helping them to understand a little bit more about each of those options. So they really understand what an apprenticeship is, how it works, and they really understand what a T-level is and how it works. But then the guidance bit is kind of like takes a big step kind of beyond the information and advice part. And this is kind of where the real sort of skill comes in, I guess. Because a lot of guidance theory is based in counselling theory. So we, as guidance practitioners, we would always take a person-centered approach. So, and we draw from a lot of different theories like planned happenstance and Bill Law's theory of community integration and things like this. So a lot of guidance theory is actually rooted in counselling theory. And this is where, the whole kind of the skill set around, respect, empathy, being non-judgmental, and sort of drawing on those kind of like counselling theories to have a successful career conversation is really what you need to do to be a good guidance practitioner, because a lot students will come to you with all sorts of different things, all sorts of different scenarios. For example, some students might have very complex home lives where perhaps they're a carer, they have caring responsibilities. and then, they might come to you and say they really want to go to university, but they just don't see how they can possibly manage that alongside their caring responsibilities. So it's all about kind of like, unpicking that problem and coming to a solution, arriving at solutions that are going to enable them to achieve their ultimate kind of career planning goals, if you like. So, guidance is, we hear all sorts of things as guidance practitioners, and that's where your sort of, the counselling theory very much comes into play when you're sort of doing true guidance. Now, I would say, quite a lot of my career conversations with young people are information and advice conversations, because often that's all a student needs. They just need pointing in the right direction, or they need unpicking and a little bit more like, what does this actually mean for me? But, it's actually rare that I do a full guidance interview, which is purely guidance with a student. But it's incredibly rewarding when, if you have a student come to you who's perhaps really torn between two different directions, or is maybe getting a lot of pressure from home to go down a particular pathway. For example, I had a student that I saw the other day from an Asian family, and she was very much being pushed down the dentistry, pharmacy kind of route, which is quite a tradition, these traditional pathways. And she just didn't want to do that. She just didn't want to do that at all. She wanted to do something that was far more creative. She actually really wanted to do art and design, and was facing a lot of pressure from home to not take that pathway. So, you can have some very, very interesting discussions, and, really feel like you've made a true impact on young people's lives. So I guess one of the things that I did want to talk to you about today was really, if you feel as though guidance is perhaps something that you're thinking may be right for you, you might be thinking it's a good pivot point, to take lots of your sort of transferable skills with you, but into a working with young people in a different kind of way, really. I wanted to talk to you about the different qualification routes that are available. So there's various ways to do this. You can become a fully qualified guidance practitioner through the level 6 diploma in career development and guidance, or career guidance and development. Can't remember which way around it is. So that's a level 6, obviously degree equivalent diploma that you can do as like a standalone qualification. And that diploma is offered at many organisations across the UK, including universities and independent training providers and private career companies like Complete Careers, where I work. And sometimes universities offer it as a level 7 as well. So you can kind of upgrade to a master's level by doing kind of an extra dissertation, which isn't necessary at all, because but if you wanted to do that, obviously it's an option. Or the other way is through the level 6 career development professional apprenticeship, which we also run at Complete Careers that I mentioned a while ago. And that is, it's a level 6 apprenticeship. So obviously it's a degree level equivalent apprenticeship. And through the apprenticeship, you do the level 6 diploma. So that's obviously a big part of it, but you also do, because it's an apprenticeship, you have the skills, knowledge and behaviours that you need to be able to demonstrate to kind of pass the apprenticeship, if you like, to go through the endpoint assessment and go through Gateway, which basically is what you do when you do an apprenticeship. So yes, the qualification is a big part of it, but there's also the sort of the apprenticeship side, which is demonstrating the knowledge, skills and behaviours. And as part of the apprenticeship, you have to do kind of one-to-one observations with students. So you would do one-to-one interviews with learners and submit those. and then they would be assessed. And there's lots of other ways, sort of assessment methods like written assignments and presentations and producing a work product and all sorts of things. Because it's an apprenticeship, it's a lot more, I guess it's more vocational in the way it's assessed, rather than strictly doing it through an academic route. So if you did the level 6 diploma with a university, most of your assignments would be written assignments with some observations. But because this is an apprenticeship, it's more varied in terms of the assessment methods, which some people quite like. So what else it takes about 18 months to complete. So most people would complete the delivery over 18 months, and then they would what we call move towards gateway. So they do like a final project for the apprenticeship, and then the apprenticeship is completed. So it's a really good way of kind of getting the qualification, but through an apprenticeship route, which of course is fully funded by the hosting employer, the hosting organization. So if you were in a situation, we get quite a lot of people who are based in schools, and perhaps they are the careers leader in school, or they're working towards that role. Often they're teachers as well, so they have teaching responsibility, but they're also taking on the careers leader role, and they complete the apprenticeship that way. Or we're being approached now by organizations who are recruiting people specifically to do the apprenticeship. So I was talking to someone today actually who is in that from a school in Sheffield, who is actually going through that process of recruiting a new member of staff specifically to put them through the apprenticeship. And of course, the hosting organization doesn't cost them anything other than the time that the member of staff has to do, put towards the apprenticeship. So the training time, if you like, the training and study time. The actual training itself is fully funded by the apprenticeship levy. So if your organisation pays the apprenticeship levy, which the vast majority of schools and colleges are levy payers, then the training, the apprenticeship training is fully funded through the levy. So effectively, the only cost to the organisation is your off-the-job hours. So you have to do 6 off-the-job hours, 6 hours of off-the-job hours per week if you're a full-time member of staff. So that is 6 hours a week of protected time that the employer has to give the apprentice to be able to complete the training and complete assignments and any kind of associated work they need to do. So what else can I tell you? Is there anything that I've missed, Katie, that you think people would like to know about?
I mean, I think that was really interesting what you said about, potentially your school can support you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, because there's actually a massive shortage in the sector. So there's nowhere near enough qualified careers advisors to go around, because I think it was back in 2000 when they introduced the Gatsby framework into the statutory guidance. I think it was 2018, something like 2017, something like that. And basically the duty to provide career guidance fell onto schools with no additional funding. So schools have had to be quite creative in the way that they can provide their learners with career guidance. And to abide by statutory guidance, every student must have one guidance interview by the time they get to year 11, and a further one by the time they get to year 13, by the time they get to the end of year 13. But there's just not enough qualified careers advisors to go around. So it's the apprenticeship is kind of that schools are finding this such a good way to upskill existing members of staff, or as I say, recruiting a new member of staff purely to train them get them trained through the apprenticeship. And because it's funded through the apprenticeship levy, it's very low cost and low risk for the organisation. So it's becoming it's really growing in popularity. from that
Yeah.
respect. Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to think desperately on back to my slides to think if there was anything on there which was like fundamental that I haven't covered. I can't think of anything at the moment. Is there anything that springs to mind? Has anyone got any questions about anything that I've said or about moving to the sector?
Yeah, any questions, please just post them in the comments and we can answer them, or Joe can answer them for you. It is a really interesting job, isn't it, as a career counsellor, because like you say, you get to kind of unpick the person, and until you kind of discover who you are, or sorry, who they are as an individual and what makes them tick, that's, you know, that's the way you can guide them. And I think it's really nice for anyone who's been a tutor or you know, got on really well with a particular cohort of students. You do try and shape their lives as much as you can whilst you're teaching. So this is just an extension of that. And this qualification, I think, again, you know, 18 months, if you can do it on the job as well, is just, you know, fantastic, isn't it? It's fantastic to sort of pivot but stay within the school system too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think as sort of teaching, you know, as a teacher, you're very much, you know, it's sort of it. Well, I think, I mean, I've never been a teacher, so I can't sort of speak from personal experience, but I think it's almost, we see as guidance practitioners, because I often have teachers like stop me in the corridor and they'll say, "Oh God, you had so and so today for an interview, didn't you? Oh my God, how did that go?" And I say, well, actually, they were a delight. They were an absolute delight. And I always say that I get the best out of students because, and it's actually the challenging students as well that you can have, you know, you've got to, if you are successful in building that rapport, because they don't know you and you don't know them really very well, they know that you know, there's no preconceived ideas or judgments going on there. You don't know these students. You might know them by face from seeing them around the school, but you don't know anything about them. And you're giving them a platform to purely talk about them, you know, and their needs. And for a lot of students, just being given that attention and that kind of professional approach, you know, but it's all about them, and, you know, that sort of really wanting to help them make these really good decisions. But obviously, you know, you're not being, you know, you're totally impartial, you're totally non-judgmental, you're not directive. Because you know, your role as a guidance practitioner is not to come up with solutions, and this is something I think is quite hard at the beginning, because you kind of feel like you want to come up with solutions for them, and that's not what it's about at all. It's about broadening their horizons and raising their aspirations and showing them the possibilities, and also getting them to be self-aware, encouraging that self-awareness. And identifying their skills and qualities and interests and work preferences, so they can then go and make good decisions and find, you know, be successful in their careers. So it's not a sort of like a conveyor belt, you know, churning them out, sort of one in, one out, right? You've got 15 minutes with me, go on, out, you know, right, you make a great teacher, out you go, off you go. It's just not like that at all. It's about really listening to what every single word they're saying, you know, and listening, deep listening. Guidance practitioners use deep listening, which is totally different to normal listening. So you're listening for any tiny little cues that student gives you, whether that's verbal or non-verbal. You know, you're picking up on every single little thing they're saying and doing, every little tiny expression, every little tiny bit of tone in their voice. You know, you're actively listening for absolutely everything, so you can really, really understand, you know, where they're coming from. You can really put yourself in their shoes and look at it from their frame of reference. You know, where are they coming from and what are they trying to tell you? You know, because sometimes students do need a little bit of, it's not always obvious what they're trying to tell you, you know, and it's that skill of trying to so really understand what their frame of reference and where they're coming from, and that's kind of a really sort of key skill that you'll build up. So yeah, there are lots of transferable skills, but there are also new skills that you would need to learn.
Yeah, I mean, quite often with a class of sort of 25 to 30, you can't deeply listen to every single person because you have to get through the curriculum. So it is, it's putting yourself in a different environment, isn't it, with a different hat on. We've got a question here from Lisa as well. Can you see the comments there, Jo?
I can't actually see any comments at all.
No, that's fine. If you click the top right-hand box,
Sorry, yes, I can see here. Lovely. So Lisa, is it feasible, possible to complete the qualification whilst working full-time in something else? I mean, I think it would be quite hard work. I think when you say the qualification, if you're just talking about the level 6 the level 6 diploma, so if you were to do that with a university, you'd either do it on a part-time or full-time basis, or a blended learning basis. So yes, in theory, yes, you can do the level 6 diploma as a standalone qualification through a training provider, through a university, whilst you're doing a full-time job, through a blended learning approach. So it would be, one perhaps going into university, maybe, I don't know, once every 2 months, having a day of teaching, but most of the learning is done online. So in theory, yes, you could, but I think it's a big ask. And, people that I've spoken to who have done it that way have kind of really, really not struggled, because they've completed the qualification, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because it is a degree level qualification. I mean, the apprenticeship, absolutely, it would be if you can do it through the apprenticeship route, that would be the easier route, because if you're a full-time member of staff and your organization puts you through the apprenticeship, they have to give you 6 hours of protected time a week. So for you, that would be the easier route, if that's a possible route for you. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And Zoe is asking if Scotland has a different approach to career guidance.
I don't know. I'm really sorry. I actually don't know how it works in Scotland. I'm afraid I just haven't got any kind of experience of how it is, how it works there. I'm so sorry. I don't think I can answer that question, but I can see if I can find out for you and come back to you. So my email address, or if you wanted to share your email with Katie, or email me the question direct, I can certainly, liaise with my trusted colleagues and see if I can come up with the answer to that. I mean, my guess would be that it would be a similar approach, but I wouldn't like to say for definite. Is it possible to do the apprenticeship solely? No. So if you are an individual, you can't put yourself through an apprenticeship as an individual. You have to do it through an employer. So you have to do it through your school or another, basically your employer, whoever your employer is. It has to be done through them, unfortunately. So it's not realistic for a teacher with 21 years of teaching to move into careers guidance, as I wouldn't be able to not work whilst I gain the qualification. So you could still gain the qualification whilst working, but it'd be very much doing it on a part-time, in your own time. So I'm not saying it's not realistic, but I think it's a big ask to gain the level 6 diploma as a qualification and working full time. It's not impossible, but it would be, it would be a lot of work. So you wouldn't have a social life, basically. But if you're prepared to give that up then yeah, I guess it's possible, definitely. I mean, if you did it through a university, I don't know what the fees would be. We do it at Complete Careers, the diploma for it's around 3,500. You probably pay a lot more with a university, but I don't know. You'd have to have a look. I know they do it at Nottingham Trent University, for example, so you could have a look and see what the fees are. Okay. I think I've answered this. I hope I've answered everyone's questions there.
I think you did, yeah. Yeah. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to ask while we've got Jo here? I've popped her email address in the chat, so feel free to copy that. Also, when this goes onto YouTube, I'll also put it in the comments section as well, just in case you didn't get to see it. Lisa has a cheeky question.
Cheeky question.
A good question, actually.
Do you know roughly what the pay for the apprenticeship would be? So if you're employed and your employer is putting you through, so if you work in a school and your school is prepared to put you through the apprenticeship, you would just stay on your normal rate of pay. So it's not like doing an apprenticeship like when you're 16 and you get paid like £6.40 an hour. You know, it's not like that at all. So your rate of pay would remain the same. You would just be doing an apprenticeship alongside your job. So there isn't kind of like, I think that's what you're asking.
I think that's what she was asking, yeah. And what about once you've finished the apprenticeship and you've qualified, what's the sort of level you can expect then?
Yeah, so it really depends, because you could end up working in a variety of settings. So you could be the careers leader based in a school or college. And I mean, I think the pay varies a lot, actually, whether you're in a secondary. So if you say, for example, if you became a guidance, if you were a guidance practitioner, a freelance guidance practitioner. So most of the guidance practitioners, if you were would charge a daily rate. So I think that daily rate would varies from anything sort of from, I don't know, £180 a day up to maybe £240 a day as a daily rate. That's as a freelance. If you were employed by a school as a guidance practitioner, I've seen salaries ranging from anything from kind of like 25,000 up to about 35,000, depending on where you are in the country. So, it kind of depends what sort of setting you're working in. Careers advisors in universities usually get paid towards the upper scale. So, sort of 30, 35, maybe a little bit more. If you were a guidance practitioner within a university. So yeah, I mean, those are the sorts of salaries that I've seen kind of advertised recently.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And you can always look on glassdoor.co.uk. They will show you comparisons. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But of course, you've got you've got the big MATs now, the Multi Academy Trust. If you were like the strategic careers lead for that, obviously the earning potential is higher in those sort of more senior strategic positions. So it really, really varies depending on what the job role is and whether you're freelance or employed, actually. Yeah.
Lisa's just added a bit more context to her original question.
Completing the apprenticeship. Yeah, so some employers would employ you while completing the apprenticeship. So could they employ you as, what could they employ you as? Okay, so if they employed you as the careers leader, for example, so they might employ you as the careers leader. You haven't, the fact that you're not a qualified careers leader, that's not stopping schools. For example, this school that I spoke to today in Sheffield, they are recruiting for a careers leader who they don't need to be an experienced careers leader because they're going to put them through the apprenticeship. So that's the whole point of recruiting. They are recruiting a new member of staff to become the careers leader, and they're going to put them through the level 6 apprenticeship to become the careers leader, if you see what I mean. So they'd be employed as a careers leader. They would do the level 6, apprenticeship. And then once they've done that, obviously they're a qualified career guidance practitioner, as well as being able to fulfill the careers leader role. So does that make sense? That's sort of the way it goes. Or they're looking for a careers advisor as well. So they would employ you as a careers advisor for the school. But you'd be an advisor in training for a while, because you wouldn't be qualified, obviously, until you've completed the apprenticeship. But they want to have somebody, they want to have their own in-house advisor. So they would employ you as an advisor, and then they would put you through the apprenticeship. Sorry, hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So you can do it whilst you're teaching, or if, like Lisa, you've left teaching, but you want to go back in and do careers guidance. Yeah. And could Lisa potentially contact, schools that she's worked at previously and talk to them about whether they'd be open to this idea and the benefits of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely that would make sense.
So use the links that you've got and your network that you've built up whilst you've been a teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I say, schools are struggling to find career guidance. They are struggling to engage with guidance practitioners, because there's just not enough of us to go around.
So providing a solution could be just fantastic, isn't it? And that could be a school you've worked or it could be just a school that's near to you that you really appreciate. So something like that would be good. So I guess being brave, Jo, do you think with this, just being brave and sort of saying the benefits to the students and the school can be this. Absolutely. However, I would need you to enroll me in this apprenticeship.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay. I mean, if you go onto the professional body for the career development kind of what am I trying to say? It's the Career Development Institute. The CDI is our professional body. So if you went onto the CDI website, you could get loads of information about the benefits of career guidance. If you wanted to put together like a really meaty case to present to a school, just go onto the CDI website, Career Development Institute, and there's so much stuff on their website. But also you can join like networks like the Facebook, the Career Leader Facebook group. So careers leaders have a Facebook group. It's really well, it's got thousands of members, and you can literally ask anything to do with careers on the Career Leader Facebook group, and somebody will come back to you with an answer. So absolutely, like, use the community. It's really, really the way forward, I think. And careers people are really nice people as well, because they genuinely want to help. So they, reaching out to careers people, you always get somebody who will come back and help you.
That's really nice. Another question here. What type of companies outside of schools hire careers advisors and put them on the apprenticeships?
So we've got a couple of apprentices at the moment with us that are from kind of private training providers. So they are private companies. Private training providers will do that. We actually have our own careers advisor from Complete Careers. She started off with us as an administrator, and she expressed an interest in going into guidance. So she's doing the apprenticeship. You'll get people from say prisons, for example, because prisons will have careers advisors. You'll have charities who will have, they're usually called employability advisors, but they're basically the same thing. They will put people through. So so that's the sort of wider third sector, higher education, of course, as well. Job centres will have careers advisors. So any of those sorts of organisations could potentially, we were approached by a charity that helps people with drug addiction recovering to get back into the workplace. So they have a whole raft of employability advisors that they're thinking of putting through the level 6 apprenticeship. So it's quite diverse, actually, probably more diverse than you would automatically think.
Yeah, I think so. That's lovely, actually, that you can sort of broaden from schools, can't you, into lots of different areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions at all before we wrap up? No? Let's see, I've put the link to the Complete Careers website there as well, so have a look. But do connect with Jo if you're serious about this. Like Jo said, it's really important to ask for help and ask for that guidance, because at the end of the day, the more you know about it, the more you can make a good fit to sort of see whether this is going to be right for you and your personal circumstance. So yeah, absolutely, make sure that you're looking after yourself, I guess. And the roles that Jo was talking about, those sort of unique roles in other areas, I think you're going to have to put it into Google, aren't you?
Well, actually, the CDI,
Yeah.
if you join the CDI, they actually send out, not join the CDI, you don't have to join it, but if you get on their mailing list, they send out a Careers in Careers newsletter I think it's every couple of weeks, actually. And so all of any job role, any career related job role that they have will be on the Careers in Careers bulletin. So that's a really good place to find out about the roles and what, like vacancies. And even if a school is recruiting for a careers advisor, it's always worth contacting them, asking them if they consider the apprenticeship, if that route is of interest to you. So I'd say the CDI, the Career Development Institute, is your kind of first port of call in terms of like vacancies.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And also, I guess that Facebook group that you mentioned as well.
Yes.
Do you remind us of the name of that again?
I think if you just literally go onto Facebook and Google Career Leader, it should come up. Yeah, it should, not Google.
Yes, search. Yeah,
search for Career Leader. It hasn't got a particular group. It's just called the Career Leader Facebook group. So yeah,
that's wonderful. So yeah, I think if you've got any questions about particular roles, pop it in there and see what people come back with. Like you say, I mean, everyone's there to help and help and support you, which is fantastic, because I think that's one of the things, isn't it? As a teacher, you go into it wanting to help and support, but sometimes you need a bit of that guidance for yourself before you can then go on and help more people. So it's it's fitting very much with the values, I think, for teachers. So yeah, fantastic. Honestly, Jo, thank you so much for your time. And I'm sorry about the technical difficulties.
No, that's my fault for being such a technological dinosaur.
Don't worry, I made you use a completely different platform, and then I didn't really explain how to upload things. So I do apologize. It's not like when you're in school and you can get the technical guy in to source it all out.
Exactly.
Thank you for bearing with us, everyone, with me with my funny throat. So thank you very much, Jo, for delivering that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I will email out the slide deck to you all should you want it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.